whoever has it, the dissemination is complex.
No, of course, the dissemination is complex. It's also about, one part of it is revival, the other part of it is dissemination, right? Look, for instance, it's not easy to tell people, we were talking about Vivekananda, it's not easy to tell people, go read the 9 volumes of his own writings, right? I mean, how many people actually go and read the 9 volumes of Vivekananda, right? I mean, it's very difficult to do that.
40 seconds का shorts बन रहा है, आप कह रहे हो 9 volumes पढ़ो.
Exactly. So therefore, the point is that there are 2 things. But having said that, I really push back against this thought that the only thing that should exist are these 40-second videos. No civilization has risen on the basis of 40-second videos, right? One of the problems of India is that we don't write enough serious books, right? Because, many of, our sort of whatever people who claim to know things believe that nahi, wo social media pe, trend kar raha hai, that's enough. But to social media pe trend karke aap civilization nahi bacha sakte. This is a stupid idea.
Likh raha hai, abhi likh raha hai, abhi dhire dhire.
But you look at the greatest countries in the world, what are they doing? America is the richest country in the world. It produces more books than anybody else, right? Look at Britain. It's its power is failing or fading, and yet it produces huge amount of intellectual knowledge.
Absolutely. I have run out of time. This is not a very small subject. It's a vast subject, but we've just perhaps touched the tip of the iceberg tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But I thank you.
I want to read one paragraph which I wrote
we'll close
about
with
that.
Ji.
Hindu is unbounded word and symbolize Sanatan, means eternal. Dharma means that which eternally sustain everything. Individual, family, community, society, animate, inanimate is a Hindu Dharma. With this word you can close.
Thank you very much.
Presented by RP Sanjeev Goenka Group. Growing Legacies. Powered by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist. SMS STAR to 56677.
Good evening, welcome to Rastax. I'm Zaka Jacob. First it was Kerala, now Tamil Nadu has become the latest flashpoint, the state where the governor and the government don't seem to see eye to eye. In Tamil Nadu, a group of members of parliament are even planning to petition the president, asking her to recall the governor, R.N. Ravi. They say at least 20 bills are pending before the governor, all of which has been passed by the state assembly. In neighbouring Kerala, there is an ongoing standoff between the governor and the state on the appointments of vice-chancellors. And today, the latest state happens to be the state of Telangana, where the governor, Tamilisai Soundararajan, has come out and said publicly that there were attempts by the TRS government to tap her phones. So who exactly in this ongoing war between governor and government, who is crossing the Lakshman Rekha?
Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Telangana. 3 states, one big fight. It's governors versus state governments. After repeated spats between the Kerala government and governor, the Pinarayi Vijayan cabinet decided to bring in an ordinance to take away the role of the Chancellor of Universities from the governor. But Arif Mohammad Khan remained defiant.
Let that stage come, and I had said whatever crisis comes, I will not sign on the address if you will try to control Raj Bhavan.
It's a similar story in Tamil Nadu. Calling Governor R.N. Ravi a threat to peace, the DMK has submitted a memorandum to the president seeking his removal from office. The memorandum listed 20 bills passed by the assembly that are awaiting the governor's assent. These include one to take away the governor's powers to appoint vice-chancellors and give them to the state government instead. In Telangana too, the ruling TRS has accused Governor Tamilisai Soundararajan of sitting on some bills forwarded by the government for her assent. Refuting the allegation, the governor claimed that her phones might be tapped.
I can take my own time to assess the bills. It was wrongly projected that I am sitting on the bills. I doubt my phone is taped. My privacy is interfered.
While the governor is an apolitical head who acts on the advice of the Council of Ministers, there are no guidelines in the Constitution for the exercise of the governor's powers. So who exactly is crossing the line here?
All right, let me go across to our full panel who's joining us on Brass Tacks this evening. S.G. Surya is spokesperson of the Tamil Nadu BJP. Will be joined by T.K. Silangovan, spokesperson of the DMK. Vivek Srivastava is a political analyst. Virag Gupta is a constitutional expert. S.G. Surya, let me start with you first. The DMK leaders, MPs and MLAs, etc., the MPs who've written a letter to the president, they claim that as many as 20 bills are pending with the Governor R.N. Ravi. So why should they not ask for his recall?
No, this is not the first time that has happened. For several bills, there were explanations sought. Several bills were resent because the governor thought it doesn't comply with the constitutional provisions of this country. But I see it in a different way. Today, the DMK is taking the issue of the governor very seriously because he has been continuously exposing the lacunas of this government openly, unlike other governors. For example, there was a blast in Coimbatore that happened on the 23rd of last month. The governor goes on to make serious charges that there was a delay in handing over the case to NIA and crucial evidences were, were destroyed. So I think this is a serious charge. So I think the DMK wants to hide things and make props up issues that are not relevant. And also we strongly believe the governance failure in Tamil Nadu is ample that the people are very angry. The people are on the streets fighting every single day. There are protests arranged in the memorial of Mr. Karunanidhi by the doctors to whom the DMK government has promised something and did not implement. To hide their failures, they are taking up these issues. That is my clear stand.
Surya, can I ask one question before I go to Vivek Srivastava? Just on the bills,
yes,
forget about the Coimbatore blast and all that for a moment. Just on the bills, are you suggesting that many of these bills have passed the assembly? Many of these bills have been voted unanimously, including by your party or allied parties like the AIDMK. 234 members of the assembly have put their mind to this bill, but the governor knows better. Is that your position?
No. It is not that he has not cleared any of the bills as far as my knowledge. There are several bills that have been cleared. There are several bills that are taking its due time. It is they cannot point out a single instance where there is a unusual delay in any of the bills except for the need bill, for which the governor has sent the bill back to the government to modify.
Okay, let me ask Vivek Srivastava. In Kerala, it's a unique situation where the governor, as per law established, and not just in Kerala, across the country, the governor is the chancellor of all universities in the state. This is by law established. If the governor has asked for a panel of recommendations for vice chancellors to be appointed across a dozen or so universities in that state, what is the problem for the state government to give those names?
You see, there are a lot of problems. It is not only Arif Mohammad Khan. The problem started in 2014 when the BJP government decided to challenge the federal structure of the Indian constitution, and the various opposition ruled states they tried to intervene via the governor. I mean, a prime example is what happened in Jadavpur University when the governor, Mr. Dhankar at that time, went with Babul Supriyo, the MP at that time, and there was a big confrontation with the students from the left parties. I mean, activist governors is the call of the day. That is what we are all against. And this stands for all opposition parties. You take the example of Tamil Nadu. 20 bills have been returned. No legitimate reason has been given. Even the BJP spokesperson sitting over here has not been able to name a single bill and tell us what is wrong with it. So autocracy is trying to be prevailed upon. Mr. Arif Mohammad Khan has been given tweet after tweet and interviews after interviews on the social media. He has never criticized anything to do with the Bilkis Bano case, whereas on the other cases, he is taking a very much pro-BJP line.
No. One second. No, Vivek.
Yeah.
Let's stick to the issue at hand. The bone of contention between the state government in Kerala and the governor is appointment of vice chancellors. The governor says that many of the vice chancellors who have been appointed are not qualified, and that the established protocol is that there should be a panel of 3 names for every vice chancellor appointment that should be forwarded to him. That procedure was not followed by the state government. It's a simple contention.
I'll answer this question very specifically and clearly to you. The RSS is out to rewrite the history of this country. That is the first thing. They are intervening with the curriculum that has been followed for the last 70 years in the nation. You take JNU, you take the CBSE curriculum, and the same thing is trying to be influenced upon in the various universities across the nation, including Kerala. Now Kerala being ruled by the communists who have been following the actual curriculum as it stands, the confrontation is due. They have changed the vice chancellor of JNU. If I tell you about JNU, you'll be shocked. Jamia is again being ruled by a very pro-BJP chancellor. There is no student union activity or elections allowed over there.
But
So
Vivek
this
Srivastava,
challenge-
it's just a
Yes.
question of forwarding 3 names per university. Surely the CPIM has enough academics that it thinks worthy enough or qualified enough to suggest to the governor. Where is
No,
the
I mean,
question of
see, I mean-
curriculum or
No,
you know?
the point is, it is
Yeah.
after the whole study, it is after the whole democratic process that we follow over there. You know, the various experts settle down and we are zeroing on one particular name. Why is Mr. Arif Mohammad Khan against those particular names? This is my reverse question. The
Okay.
question is because the BJP top bosses sitting over there are not okaying those names.
No, no, I
That is
don't
the
think
problem.
his problem is with individual names. I think his problem is with the process. He says that the process has been violated. But let me get TK Silangovan. Again in Tamil Nadu, the contention by the BJP is that other than the NEET bill, Mr. Ilangovan, all the other bills the governor has given his assent to or has forwarded for a legal opinion. The NEET bill is a different matter altogether. I don't want to get into that. But this whole contention that your party has raised that 20 bills are pending before the governor is inaccurate. That's the contention by the BJP.
Who is consulting? He should consult a government advocate. But none of the bills were sent to the AG of the state or Attorney General of the country. See, when the subject matter is in the state list, the governor has to sign it, and if there is any technical problem, like it is violating any of the constitutional provisions, he can send it to the advocate for opinion. But all the 20 bills are lying with him without signature, and all these bills were passed by the Legislative Assembly.
No, what are these bills?
So-
Mr. Ilangovan, other than the NEET bill, what are the other bills that are pending before the governor?
There are 20 bills which we have listed and given as the cooperative societies bill is one such bill. So he doesn't want to sign any bill passed by the state legislature which is elected by the people of the state. The question, the problem faced by the opposition ruled states is that governors are not cooperating with the state government for, we don't know the reason, but that is happening in every state.
Okay, so
That happened
SG
in
Surya,
West
what is
happened in
the
Delhi.
problem with the cooperative societies bill? What's the problem with the
I
online
don't
gaming
know.
bill?
He wanted
There has to be a reason why the governor is sitting on these bills, is the contention by the DMK. SG Surya.
Yes. We have listed the number of the bills.
Yeah, okay,
there
let
are-
Surya respond. Yeah, thank you.
Zakir, there are processes that are being followed in the state for quite long. For example, the appointment of vice chancellors. The government has passed a bill which will say the vice chancellor appointment will be happening without the consent of the governor. Now the precedent is for the last 70 years you have been following this system. The same DMK government, the same DMK party, when the ADMK was in power few years back, when they tried to bring such a bill, they said governor is needed to control the state government, so the governor should remain chancellors. Today they have overturned their stand. Now they have sent a bill which will say that the governor will not appoint the vice chancellors.
Okay.
We have seen corruption everywhere, that too in Tamil Nadu, precisely when DMK is in power. So they do not want the governor in that place because they want to indulge in corruption. That is our blanket charge.
Okay.
So every bill is like this. There are bills that has the technicalities. There are bills like NEET, which again is a dispute. But there are certain bills that he is taking legitimate time. I think, see, I am not the spokesperson for the governor, but the governor himself has clarified on different occasions. He has clarified on different occasions, pinpointing the bills, that why it is getting delayed.
Okay,
what is the due process he is following?
let me ask,
what is the legal status,
okay,
and etc.
Let me ask Virag Gupta, who is a constitutional expert. As per the Constitution of India, whenever a state assembly passes a bill, and in many of these cases, these are bills that have been passed unanimously. It's not just, one party or the ruling party that's passing those bills. Normally, the governor just gives his or her assent to those bills. In certain exceptional cases, the governor can send the bill back to the Legislative Assembly. They have to apply their mind again. And if they pass it again, then the governor has no choice but to sign or give his assent to those bills. Has that, constitutionally followed precedent now changed? Is that sort of unsaid Lakshman Rekha now changed with the instances that we're seeing of late in Kerala or in Tamil Nadu or in Telangana for that matter?
From this aspect, there are 2 points. First is that it has to be passed as per the jurisdiction of state legislature. And if there is any violation or if there is any some central government interference is required, then governor can take the action. And second thing is, constitution is silent that what should be the time limit, and this matter has come before many commissions and many Supreme Court judgments also. Now let us understand this whole debate in 3 aspects. First is, governor is normally a non-political person as per the Article 158 of the Constitution, though he may be representing the central government.
Okay.
Secondly, there are certain grey areas like assembly sessions or the giving the consent or as a chancellor, where he can have his own discretion. But in other areas, he is not a auditor, he is not some certain person that he can interfere in the day-to-day administration.
Okay.
For that, I think that we have to see that in double engine government and in other engine government, governor cannot have a different type of role. We have to see that in other state governments, whether governors are actively participating in such manner. Otherwise, as per the different, and this whole thing started in 1967. That's why certain recommendations were given in 1968 ARC. So we have to see that governor should function uniformly in all the state as per the constitutional provisions.
No, that's a fair point. I think that's a good point. I'll ask Surya that, but I want to go back to Mr. Elangovan. The fact of the matter is what Virag Gupta said, the constitution does not prescribe, Mr. Elangovan, that the governor has to sign or give his assent to bills within 1 month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. The governor can sit on bills. The constitution is not laying down a stipulated timeline or a deadline by which governor has to give his assent.
Yeah, because he is not running the government, we are responsible to the people. The problem is that elected democracy means it is run by the people, a group of people elected by the people. So, state legislature is elected by the people. A democracy means state legislature does something which they have promised to the people. If the government keeps on holding the bill without giving assent to it, then what is the purpose of the promises made to the people? See, we must care for the people, not for the office. Governor's office is the only non-elected office. The Prime Minister is elected, even the President is elected by the MLAs and MPs. The state government is elected by the people. The office and
No, Mr. Elangovan, just one follow-up question. In the case of Arif Mohammad Khan, you can make the claim that, of course, he's a politician and obviously, you know, he may owe his allegiance to a particular political party or whatever. But in the case of Mr. Ravi, he's not a politician. He has been a career bureaucrat.
I understand. The bureaucrat, another bureaucrat, a similar IPS officer is running the BJP here. See, the question is whether the union government is controlling the governors and making them to act according to their whims and fancies to control or to spoil the state governments which are not run by the BJP government.
Okay, let me ask Surya this. I think that's a fair point. You can't have governors in double-engine sarkars behaving a certain way and governors in opposition rule states behaving in another way. Surya.
Zaka, see, they keep telling 20 bills, 20 bills and 20 bills, but if you go and analyze the bills, very few, less than 10% are the original bills. The others are amendments to the existing laws that are in place. You know about Tamil Nadu, when ADMK comes, they will make some amendments. DMK again, they will again do an amendment. So this is a continuous process. There are 3 bills which I know, Zaka. The entire purpose of the bill that is presented in the assembly is to curb the powers of the governor. That is their motive. So you check with all the states, it is not that immediately you get assent for the amendment bills also. Even if it is an amendment bill where there is a change in only one clause of the entire act, the governor is bound to do with the constitutional provisions. Tell me one thing, what is the bill that is stopped by Mr. Ravi in Tamil Nadu? That is, that is very, very urgent in nature. Can they claim because Mr. Ravi has not passed a certain bill that the state is in danger or something is affected and etc. It is a regular regular executive and the administrative process. I think they politicize it pointlessly. Can
Mr.
Mr.
Elangovan, is there
I
any
challenge you? 80% of the pending bills or amendment bills, they are not new
Is there
bills.
any
Please do
bill
not bring a
that is
situation
pending
and,
before the
portray
governor
that all the bills are pending?
that is material to the functioning of the state government? I mean, these are all amendments, as Surya says, and is there anything that is stopping the constitutional functioning of the state, institutions from disposing their duty? Is there any bill that is hindering the state government's work?
The only criteria is that all bills were passed by the state legislature, which was elected by the people of Tamil Nadu. That is the only thing which the governor has to oblige. The governor has to act as per the advice of ministers. That is also there in the constitution. But this governor is holding, whether it is an amendment or not. If it is a simple amendment, why can't he keep it as an? Why is he holding that bill also? What is the reason? See, if the governor is holding a bill for any reason, he should discuss with the state and say that because of this I am holding the bill. This is against the provisions of this section of the constitution. This is against any other law. That way he should approach. He cannot just keep it and without signing and keep it for quite a long time.
Okay. So let me ask Vivek Srivastava, in the case of Kerala, now the state government is planning to bring an ordinance, forget about a bill, an ordinance to remove the governor as the chancellor of all universities in the state. Now, the fact of the matter is that for 150 years plus, since the time of the British, the university chancellors have all been governors of respective provinces or states. Why is the CPM government going to change a 150-year-old tradition because they have a problem with one individual in Arif Mohammad Khan?
No, it is not the problem with one individual. It is a problem which starts right from 7RCR, where the Prime Minister resides. It starts from there. It starts from the party which is ruling the country, which has got malicious intent. There is a concept of a particular education policy, which we do not agree with. We did not, nobody challenged all this for the last 70 years. The Congress had been in power. Other parties, the third front, parties came, parties went, governments came, governments went. But the process was never challenged because constitutionally, certain norms in the social fabric of the nation was always protected this way or the other. However, since 2014, things have changed in a very drastic way. Again, I'm trying to point it out to you. They are trying to challenge and change the entire education policy. The curriculum, false history is going to be taught. Stories are being cooked up. Okay?
But Mr. Srivastava, so, if this is the case, it should apply across the board, across states. It should apply as much in BJP ruled states as it should apply in opposition ruled states.
Yes.
And yet BJP is in power in 17 or 18 states in this country. There we don't hear this.
Electoral victory is one thing. I mean, there the union government and the state government both belong to the same party. So there's no confrontation. In Delhi, there was no confrontation when Sheila Dikshit was the chief minister and there was Congress which was running the government at the center. But today, even if you take Delhi, I am not an Aam Aadmi Party supporter, but the governors, right from Najib Jung to the present governor and the Aam Aadmi and the ruling state government, they are in confrontation all along. All along. Every day there is a Twitter war. So, I mean, the concept of the federal structure of this country is being challenged. This needs to be addressed.
Okay, let me ask Virag Gupta, is governors having these frequent run-ins with state governments, whether it's in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, even the case of Delhi that Vivek Srivastava was referring to, does it undermine the constitutional and the federal nature of our polity?
Certainly it undermines, and it is undermining for last many decades, not only since 2014. And you have forget to mention about the Jharkhand episode where governor has not acted in the report of the election commission on the office of profit issue. Now 3 issues are there. First, those who are opposing the governor's power should understand that as per constitution, he is bigger, he has a bigger power than what the role is described of the President of India. Because President of India has to, in most of the cases, has to work as per the advice of the Council of Ministers. But governor has certain discretions. Secondly, whenever it comes
Mr.
about
Gupta,
the legislation,
Mr. Gupta,
so
sorry.
in those
What the point that Mr. T.K. Elangovan and others are making is, in a democracy, ultimately the elected representatives are the representatives of the people. They must have the highest voice and the highest power.
That's what.
Therefore, Any bills
what
passed
I'm
by a
saying.
state legislature should be given primacy.
That's no subject to three exceptions.
Okay.
And if the state government is having the majority, then governor should normally not interfere in day-to-day administration. But regarding legislation and the bills, there are three exceptions. One, if he's in the union list, interfering in the union list. Secondly, if it is in the concurrent list. And thirdly, governor is central government appointee, and if in any manner it interferes with the powers of the governor, then there can be confusion or there can be debate whether it requires consent or some approval from the union, because ultimately there is certain restrictions in the power of state legislature and state government.
No, tell me something.
But we
Tell me
must
something.
understand
In the appointment of vice chancellors, okay, there's a role for the governor. I can understand the governor's sort of drawing red lines there. But in banning of online gaming, in housing cooperative society bills, what is the role of the governor, or how is the role of the governor being undermined in any form or fashion, or how is the constitution being undermined in any form or fashion, or how is the central government's role being undermined in any form or fashion that the governor has to sit on these bills?
No, there are two aspects. Regarding online gaming aspect comes within the union list, and cyber and these IT aspects come within the union list. So normally state government has the law and order, police power is there, but to legislate on IT, I think that requires some central government intervention. Regarding cooperative society, we need to understand whether any central government funding aspect is there or not. So, but in any manner, governor should not hold the bills. They must give in certain time-bound manner their objections in writing so that they can be addressed by the state government.
Okay,
They
let me
can't
ask
keep
T.K.
the
Silangovan.
hold
I mean,
on those
online
things
gaming,
and-
you have to have a law across India. You can't have one online gaming rule for Tamil Nadu, one for Kerala, one for other states. And therefore, it comes under the central list. That's why the governor is sitting on it.
No. See, there are many states which have banned the lottery. Some states are allowing lottery. In Tamil Nadu, lottery is banned. So, this gaming, this kind of things are certain states that made laws. And earlier, in Tamil Nadu, you cannot run a lottery. Whereas in other states, you can have lottery. So, this is such type of a legislation that the state, we want to protect the people of the state when they are borrowing money, they are committing suicide. We have to protect the people.
No, but Mr. Ilangovan, let aside the bills for a moment. Keep that aside for a moment. The political statements that the governor has made, whether it's on Hindi language, whether it is on NEET, whether it is on Dravidianism, that is the problem that the DMK has with the governor, not so much the bills that he's setting on.
That is also there. See, the governor makes a statement. Tamil Nadu governor has made a statement regarding Tirupur. He said that G.U. Pope's translation is wrong. He doesn't know Tamil. The problem is that he doesn't know Tamil. Without knowing the source language, he makes a commitment. That is purely political and purely religious. He doesn't want to have a say by Tirupur that all men are born equal. What we say is, when we are living like that, these unnecessary comments by governor without even knowing the language, commenting on the translation. See, this is not fair. He is acting with an ulterior motive. That
Okay,
is what
S.D.
we have to
Surya, why
suspect.
should the governor make political statements, whether it's on Dravidianism, whether it's on Hindi?
Yes,
The
that is
office of the
what-
governor is a constitutional post. He should stick to constitutional matters. Why is he or she making public comments that too on political matters? Surya.
The very problem starts in defining what is truth and what is false. According to the DMK government, whatever they speak, whatever they stand for, whatever their ideology is true, and anybody who talks anything against it, it becomes false. Very simple. See, I really don't understand what is the problem with the governor here. If he gives his opinion to the public, is he not entitled? Does freedom of speech doesn't apply to the governor? See, you have built a narrative called a Dravidian narrative, and you have fooled people for so many years. When somebody comes and gives an alternate view, why are you panicking if your ideology is so strong? Let people have different views, and it is for the common public to take whether they accept it or not. Why are you really scared when somebody tells things that you do not like? So you cannot expect the governors to act as your rubber stamps, act as your mouthpieces. The very purpose of having a governor and having powers to the governor as enshrined in the Constitution of India is to have the check on the state governments.
Okay.
If the state government says you give not to whatever I ask for, I don't think it is the proper constitutional approach to deal with. See, do you mean to say everything that the state government does is right and for everything the governor should just nod his head? He is not a rubber stamp, obviously. The constitution did not have the position of governor to act like a rubber stamp. See, there are so many administrative processes that is happening in every state. If you are part of an administration, you know without the cooperation of the government, you cannot run your day-to-day affairs. Nothing is affected. You just want to make political points out of it. You want to bring in issues to divert the people. Then you keep on blaming the governor.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. I'm completely out of time. I want to thank T.K. Silangovan, S.G. Surya, Vivek Srivastav and Virag Gupta for joining us. So like I said, in the southern states, particularly from Kerala to Tamil Nadu and now today Telangana as well, there seems to be a direct face-off between the governor and state governments. Let's see how this story plays out politically over the next few days and weeks. I'm going to take a quick break here on the program. When we come back right on the other side, it's down to the wire in the US midterm polls. Yes, the Republicans will carry through the House of Representatives, so they will win one chamber of Congress. The Senate is still really a toss-up between the Democrats and the Republicans. There is a good chance that the Democrats will hold on and retain the Senate. What may that mean, both for Biden, who may seek a reterm, another term in 2024, and also Donald Trump, who's promised to make a big announcement right next week. On the other side, we'll have a special voice from CNN as well as a panel joining us in just a moment.
Why they're here. And I want to thank you all for being here. And again, to the media, thank you very much. Have a good time. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, everybody. This has been a very exciting night. We have some races that are hot and heavy, and we're all watching them here. And some of you like the music so much that you'd rather hear the music, and I understand that very well. So we're doing combinations of both. I'd like to welcome the fake news media, which is back there. There's a lot of people back there. That's incredible. That's a big group. They must be expecting something big tonight. Actually, they were hoping for big losses, but that's not happening. So the numbers have been amazing so far. Now, this is just up until this point. But as of this moment on endorsements, with the nominations, we had a total of 330 endorsements on nominations. This is only on nominations. This isn't for tonight. And of the 330, we won 200. We won 324. So if you think 224, and some of those were long shots, in all fairness. They were down in 5th place. We had a lot of people in 5th place that went to first, but it was 224 out of 330, and that's a pretty good number. And then tonight, because they kept saying, well, he's good on nominations, but is he good on the general election? So as of this moment, and we have some out there, we are 80 wins and 3 losses. Is that good? Wouldn't that be funny if we were better on the general election than the nominations themselves? So that's great. Now, in North Carolina, just out, Ted Budd is now leading, doing great. He's leading 51-47. In Missouri, very good guy, Eric Schmidt is now up 55-43, and he's against a Bush, but a different Bush. It's called an Anheuser-Busch. That's a different Bush. You tell me which is the real Bush. In Ohio, J.D. Vance is now leading 52-47. And we had an incredible rally last night in Ohio. And you saw that in Florida, Marco Rubio, we had an unbelievable rally for Marco the night before with the heaviest rain I've ever been involved with. I was up there. It was beautiful, everything. This is the tropics, right, Florida? It was so beautiful. It was the most beautiful night. And all of a sudden, it turned deadly dark. And it was like you had massive pails of water that just fell on top of me. We went through the worst storm, but we gutted it out. I had no teleprompters. We had 45,000 people out there. We had no teleprompter. And I said, I wonder what Biden would do right now. But we gutted it out, and it was amazing. But Marco had a fantastic evening at 58 to 41. That's really tremendous. That's as of this moment. Katie Britt, I want to congratulate Katie Britt. We endorsed Katie, and she did fantastically. 68 to 30. That means she has a future, young and just a fantastic woman with a husband who's great. He's maybe the largest human being I've ever seen. He was a offensive lineman in the NFL for a long time and a great football player, actually. Played for Alabama. But Katie, congratulations to you. And we have a lot of other good ones going out there. Herschel's leading right now. So we have a lot of big races going on right now. So enjoy that, enjoy the food, and enjoy everything. And really, in all fairness, it is a great honor to have the media with us. And we hope you enjoy yourself and this wonderful group of people. These are the people that you read about. They are not the nicest people in the world, but they are brilliant financially. We're not going to see any great football stars in here, but we do see brilliant people. But but they're great people and very, very successful people, and they want what's good for the country, and that's why they're here. And I want to thank you all for being here. And again, to the media.
Welcome back. The other big story, which is still unfolding, is the results from the midterm elections in the United States. It's been a good result so far for the Republicans. They will most definitely get back control of the U.S. House of Representatives. But the good result is far from a great one because they've already lost one crucial Senate seat in Pennsylvania. They will now need to flip at least two between the states of Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, 2 out of 3. To wrest control of the U.S. Senate. It is likelier at this given point of time that the Democrats might retain control of the Senate than the Republicans. The House races too. Yes, the Republicans will take control of the House, but the kind of red wave that they were expecting has not come to pass.
The battle for control of Congress is coming down to just a handful of critical races. Democrats garnering enough victories across the country to stave off Republicans' pursuit of a red wave, but with several races still too close to call, both parties now clinging to hopes of winning narrow majorities in both chambers. A key win for Democrats.
I'll be the next U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania.
As Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman defeated Trump-endorsed Dr. Mehmet Oz to flip the formerly Republican-held Senate seat, giving Democrats a much-needed opportunity to maintain control of the upper chamber. The GOP also falling short on Senate races in New Hampshire and Colorado, but taking key victories in Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio, where Republican J.D. Vance defeated Democratic Senate candidate Tim Ryan.
I will never forget where I came from, and I will never forget the great people of Ohio. Thank you for this honor to serve you. I'll fight for you every day.
Control of the House, too, remains uncertain. Republicans, who expected to benefit from high inflation and historical trends, have not seen all of their anticipated victories materialize. However, GOP momentum in the closing stretch has prepared the White House for potentially governing in a divided Washington.
It is clear that we are going to take the House back.
But tight races in Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Georgia could take days, if not weeks, to be decided, leaving the balance of power in Washington up in the air.
All right, let me go straight across to CNN's senior political analyst, John Avlon, who's joining us live from New York. Thanks very much, John, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Let's start with the key reasons behind what looks like an exceptionally tight race. Yes, the Republicans will certainly take back control of the House, but in the Senate, it is still up for grabs. And like I said earlier on, at this given point of time, it looks likelier that the Democrats might retain control of the Senate and not so much the Republicans. Despite, the war, the soaring prices of gas and groceries, how is it that this has not become a red wave? And how did the Democrats manage to hold off what could have been a red wave?
That's the That's the question Republicans are asking themselves today, because all expectations in Washington and much of the public polling seem to indicate that traditional red wave. And what I mean by traditional is American midterm elections have a clear pattern in recent years. The opposition party to the president who controls the White House tends to gain significantly in the midterm elections, as independent voters in particular try to create some balance between the parties in Washington. One statistic that stood out to me is opposition parties have won an average of 46 House seats when the president is below 50% approval. That's since 1982 when Ronald Reagan was president. Nothing like that is going to happen in this midterm election. Instead, a lot of the gains that Republicans expected to make evaporated. Now, the Senate still too close to call, and indeed polls show this would be too close to call. Democrats always had a hope they would hold on to it, but Republicans assumed there would be a significant swing in the House races to their favor. That has not materialized. And I think a big part of the reason is that while the issues of inflation are on people's minds and perceptions of rising crime, the candidates Republicans put forward at Donald Trump's request in many cases, election-denying candidates, seemed simply too extreme. And so the argument that democracy was itself on the ballot does seem to have resonated. It's always the economy stupid, but this year it's the extremism stupid.
I just want to go back to a point that you made that historically, midterm elections have always been sort of against the incumbent president in the White House, whichever party he or she may belong to, Let's go back in time. In 1994, when Bill Clinton lost his first midterms, the Democrats lost something like 53 House seats. Obama, after the historic election in 2008, in 2010 in the Tea Party election, he lost 63 House seats. Biden's losses in comparison, at best, would be in the range of 30 or so. Again, what may this mean for the remainder of his term? Does this potentially give him encouraging signs, if you will, to consider a 2024 rerun?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to keep in mind that while, as you say, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama suffered what Obama called a shellacking in their midterm elections, they both went on to win re-election handily. And that's, of course, good news if you're in the Biden White House today. Now, there are additional factors that Biden has to take into account, questions about his age, but the economy and the other things that had been stacking up against him. People forget that in terms of his first-term legislative record, he can be called a consequential president. There was actually a lot of bipartisan legislation that passed. Now, it didn't have the impact that many folks hoped in terms of the middle class and moderates in the economy, but Republicans didn't put forward a compelling counter message either in terms of how they'd solve those problems. You asked what's the likely outcome and how it will impact the rest of the Biden presidency. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that Republicans take the House, but by a narrow margin, and Democrats narrowly keep the Senate. Well, what that means is the House will actually be more extreme because the House of Representatives, the extremist candidates who survive this midterm election, will have more influence because Republicans will need to have every vote to pass legislation. And so that's the danger, that's the nightmare scenario that people like Kevin McCarthy are facing. He had planned to announce a quick leadership vote and expected a larger margin. Doesn't look like he's going to have that. If Democrats keep the Senate, you'll have a balance between the two chambers. But if you have Republican narrowly controlling the Senate and the House, it will be full opposition. It won't be as full-throated, and maybe there'll be a prayer of some bipartisan legislation, but that's really a recipe for gridlock, unfortunately, as opposed to reasoning together, because so much of the common ground in politics has evaporated. Although this election should remind people the common ground still does exist.
I want to talk a little bit about, these extremist candidates that you talked about, election deniers among them. According to the Washington Post, more than 200 Republican candidates who were running in these midterms have denied the legitimacy of the 2020 vote, the presidential election which Joe Biden won. Many of these candidates have been endorsed by Donald Trump. What may this mean for not just the divided politics of America, but more importantly, the faith that American people have in its democratic institutions?
It's been a very dangerous moment because election denialism is not like other forms of extremism we've faced. It's a full-throated lie created out of whole cloth by Donald Trump to preserve his ego because he lost the last election. but he couldn't accept it, and neither could his hardcore supporters. And in the core problem of American politics, as in many democracies, being hyperpartisanship and polarization, those election deniers did well in the closed Republican primaries because they had Donald Trump's support, because they were willing to echo his lie. But they fared less well in the general election, and that's what's hopeful. Again, we face all sorts of different perceptions of extremism. The Democratic Party has their own baggage as well. But election denialism is uniquely dangerous for these three reasons. One, democracy depends upon an assumption of goodwill among fellow citizens. Election denialism obliterates that. Second, democracy depends upon a shared set of facts so we can reason together to solve common problems. Well, definitionally, election denialism destroys that as well. And so the compounding problem means we can't have a common language. And so when you look at a lot of Americans polling saying that they're concerned about the future of the country, the stability of our democracy, they're not necessarily at all reflecting on the party in power. They're representing on the persistence of Donald Trump's influence inside the Republican Party. But the repudiation of these candidates weakens Donald Trump's hand for any future political presidential campaign that he clearly expected to answer. And it means that there will be more voices inside of the Republican Party who have the courage to speak out what many of them said in private, which is this is a baseless lie that has driven their party into a comparative ditch, even if they make narrow gains. It's so far short of what they expected. And here's the final measure I'd use. Independent voters, some folks might know, actually there are more independent voters in America than Republicans or Democrats. Independent voters almost always swing against the party in power. This election, CNN exit polls show that independent voters actually narrowly sided with Democrats by 49 to 47. That's unheard of in midterm elections. And that's a direct repudiation, I believe, of Donald Trump and those election-denying candidates that were put forward.
So what may this mean for Trump's own he's certainly harboring thoughts of running for re-election in 2024. He's promising that there's going to be a big announcement on the 15th next week. Trump himself had endorsed close to 300 candidates between the House and the Senate in this particular midterm. Not many of them have tasted success. What may this mean for Trump's own announcement of a potential, seeking another term in 2024, that announcement that he's been teasing for the 15th, and how may that change the Republican field? If Trump were to announce on the 15th, what may a Ron DeSantis, how may he react, or a Nikki Haley, or a Marco Rubio, or anyone who's potentially looking at running in a Republican primary?
Well, the conventional wisdom was that Donald Trump wanted to announce early so he could A, take credit for huge Republican gains in the midterm elections, B, clear the field by having other Republicans afraid to get in because of his famous name calling, and third, that he would be able to essentially outflank the many legal and court challenges he is facing for allegedly illegal or unethical actions around whether it's business or the January 6th attack of the Capitol and whatever role he played in that, as courts may determine, in addition to his on-tape efforts to try to get Georgian Republicans to overturn the election on his behalf. All those court cases are going forward, and his belief was, if I declare my presidential campaign, it will make those prosecutions look like a persecution. Well, now, he can't take credit for a huge Republican wave. And more Republican candidates are likely to have the spine to stand up and say, Donald Trump is destructive to our party and we cannot have him be the future, because the results will be the same as in the past. Losing the popular vote at the very least, and possibly quite more than that, given how unpopular Donald Trump is in the American people writ large. Just because you're popular in your party, of course, doesn't mean you're popular with the American people writ large, and Donald Trump is definitively not. He's less popular than Joe Biden, who's underwater. So I think it won't give him pause necessarily, because he only does what he thinks is in his self-interest. And he likes the attention, he likes the money, he likes the power and influence it gives him. But I do hope, for the sake of American democracy, that it inspires more Republicans to stand up and run for president if they feel that Donald Trump's not the right path forward. Not only run themselves, but also more influential Republicans standing up and supporting those candidates, as opposed to being afraid of Donald Trump, which many of them have been, which have led them to sort of acquiesce to his election lies to date, with destructive impact on American democracy and the Republican Party, as we saw from these elections.
Yeah, I guess the first test would be the election of the Speaker, the House Majority Leader, and so on in the U.S. House of Representatives. For the moment, though, thank you very much, John Avlon, for joining us with your perspective, your thoughts. Like I said at the top, it was a good night for the Republicans, not necessarily a great one, not the kind of red wave that they were expecting. So why is that? Let's break it down for you on the magic wall. The Senate, the Republicans were hoping that they can control both chambers of Congress. That has not come to pass. It's a dead heat, 48 Republican, 48 Democrats right now. Remember, the Republicans need 51. The Democrats need just 50. That's the magic figure because they have the tiebreaker vote of the vice president, which is Kamala Harris. Now, what went wrong for the Republicans? This state of Pennsylvania, that was the flip state. That was the flip seat. John Fetterman versus Dr. Mehmet Oz. John Fetterman flipping that seat from Republican to Democrat. So what that means is that gives the Democrat Party luxury. It does not give luxury to the Republicans, which means the Republicans will have to carry through Wisconsin, which they likely will. Ron Johnson there leading by about 50,000 votes or so. But they have to flip between Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. They have to flip at least 2 out of those 3. In Nevada, it's an interesting race. The Senate seat there. In Arizona, it's Mark Kelly versus Blake Masters. Mark Kelly, of course, has run up a huge lead there. But there is still a lot of vote that is left to be counted in Arizona. So that's going to be one race to watch out for. In Nevada, Catherine Mastillo is leading. Again, slender margin there. But it looks likely if she keeps that lead, if the Democrats keep the leads both in Nevada and Arizona, then it's game over for the Republicans. Then the Georgia result does not even matter. The Georgia result, again, is going to be a very, very close affair because neither candidate, neither Raphael Warnock nor Herschel Walker has been able to get that magic figure of 50% plus 1 vote, which means that it has to go into a runoff. If it goes into a runoff in December, then it is again a toss-up. But, like I said, the Republicans need to win both of Nevada and Arizona if the Georgia runoff needs to be in play. If they don't win either of Nevada and Arizona, then the Democrats get up to that magic figure of 50, which is where they need to be because they have the casting vote or the tiebreaker vote of Kamala Harris. Let's take a quick look at the House. Like I said, it has been a good night as far as the House of Representatives is concerned for the Republicans. 201 currently, just 182 to the Democrats. But the losses for the Democrats, and if you look at the pickups, the Democrats have picked up 4 seats. The Republicans have picked up 10 seats. There were about 23 competitive races at the start of election night, of which the Republicans have won about 19 of them. If they win 23, they get to the magic figure of 218. But they were hoping for a much bigger, a much larger majority in the House of Representatives. That, of course, makes their legislative agenda much more easier to carry through. But remember what the Democrats had in 2018. It was 222. Will the Republicans get to 222? Will they get less than that, more than that? I think that is an interesting figure to watch out for. And finally, in the governor's races, very quickly, we had, of course, Ron DeSantis. And this has been one of the stories of not just this election, but the last couple of election cycles. Florida. Florida is now red country. It's red territory. Ron DeSantis carrying the state again. In Georgia, again, it hasn't been that great a night for Donald Trump or his candidates because Brian Kemp, the Georgia governor who had a public run-in with Donald Trump after the 2020 election, he has managed to keep that state. Greg Abbott winning in Texas. So if you look at it, it's pretty much, even Stevens as far as the governor's races are concerned. 24 to the Republicans and 22 to the Democrats. The Democrats, of course, one heartening factor for them would be that they've got the governorships in Colorado, in New Mexico, and in Kansas, which is supposed to be Bible Belt. It's supposed to be the heartland of America. You now have a Democratic governor in Kansas. So let me go across to our guests and just broaden this out. What made the midterm election results? The fact that it's not been that great a night for the Republicans. What may this mean in foreign policy terms? Meera Shankar is former Indian ambassador to the United States. Stephen Golub is an international affairs expert. Meera Shankar, first things first, I think everybody is concerned about the immediate fallout, and that is what happens to the war in Ukraine. If the Republicans were to take the House and take the House in a big way, I think Kevin McCarthy has already said that they will put a stop to this blank check that's been given to Ukraine. Now that it's looking more even, Stevens, yes, the Republicans get the House, the Democrats may likely get the Senate. Does that mean that the war effort in Ukraine will continue, this blank check will continue, and this almost endless supply of weapons will continue?
Well, I think that there will be pressure to nudge Ukraine in the direction of negotiations. And this will come from both the speed breakers that the Republicans have said they will put on aid to Ukraine, which will not be unquestioned in future, and from the progressives in the Democratic Party, who had also written a letter to Biden. I think almost 30 or more of them had written a letter, basically saying that you can't have war as an open-ended project, and that, at the end of the day, talks are necessary. And of course, the administration had come down like a ton of bricks on them, and the letter was withdrawn. But I do think that both these pressures will operate, and you will see perhaps some degree of a greater push on Ukraine to consider negotiations. As it is, Jake Sullivan has been in touch with his Russian counterpart and has been nudging the Ukrainians, not specifically to a set of talks, but to accept the principle of talks and not to rule out talks with Putin as they have been doing till now. So I do expect that, or at any rate hope, that there will be a push towards a more diplomatic efforts on Ukraine, as opposed to an open-ended war.
Let me ask Stephen Golub. Next week, Joe Biden is going to be at the G20 in Bali. There's supposed to be a meeting between him and Xi Jinping. It was all sort of factored in that it's going to be a weakened Biden. The Republicans are going to win the House and the Senate, but that has not come to pass. The Republican majority in the House is not as big as they expected. The Senate will most likely stay in Democratic control. It's not as weakened a Biden as was expected a week or 10 days ago. How may that change his own interactions there at the G20 vis-a-vis Xi Jinping? People are still talking about a potential meeting between him and Putin. We don't even know if Putin's going to go to the G20. But how may that change the way the rest of the world's leaders approach him and the way he approaches them?
Well, that's a good question. I think the answer is almost found within your question, that he comes away from this election stronger than anticipated, and that may affect how other world leaders see him. They won't see him as necessarily a lame duck or presiding over a big electoral loss. And that can have ripple effects, positive ripple effects for Biden and the U.S. in terms of foreign policy. Now, having said that, there are a couple of things I want to comment on from the previous speaker, the fellow who'd spoken previously. Well, one thing just to start with is it's not clear, I believe, that the Republicans will necessarily take back the House. It's likely, but it's not absolutely clear yet. A lot of mail-in and other votes still have to be counted in some key districts. One other thing, one matter that was highlighted by that previous guest is an optimism that leaders will now push back against Donald Trump, against election denialism. We've heard that before, including when Trump seemed to be weakened after the horrible insurrection, the seizure of the Capitol, where the House and Senate meet, by a mob that he inspired. It looked like the Republicans were going to push back very strongly against him. There were rumbles along those lines, including by the House minority leader, perhaps Speaker to be Kevin McCarthy. That didn't happen. Now, just to get back briefly to the matter of where Biden stands in foreign policy at this next big meeting and afterwards, if in fact the Republicans take control of the House, they will hamper him at every turn for political reasons, and that could undercut elements of his foreign policy, not least in Ukraine.
Okay, let me ask Meera Shankar. Of course, as far as the US-India relationship is concerned, there has been a bipartisan nature to it for the last 30 years or so. But having said that, with the Biden administration, even though India has become a major defense partner and there are regular visits and so on and so forth, the fact that even an ambassador has not come here and taken charge yet, is that a bit of a niggle? And of course, American concerns about India continuing to buy Russian oil. It used to be less than 1% when this war began. It's now upwards of 20%. Of course, India has its own justification for it. Are these niggles, or is this something that is sort of fundamentally denting the relationship?
I don't think it's fundamentally denting the relations. I think the US would have been happier if our policy on Ukraine and Russia had been more closely aligned with theirs, but they have accepted the fact that India's geopolitical situation is such that it cannot sever ties with Russia, given that 60% of its defense equipment is of Russian origin, and our troops are currently deployed in a live manner on the border with China.
Yeah.
So we are just not in a position to, align our policy with the US on Ukraine. And as I said, there is an acceptance of this, as also an acceptance of the fact that both countries do have a close convergence with regard to the Indo-Pacific, and both are committed to take those cooperative arrangements forward
All right.
fairly robustly, and have been doing so.
Okay, let me
So
give
I
Stephen
see
Golub the final word. Just in terms of the other big consequential relationship bilaterally is US-China. And we haven't had a state visit either by Biden to China or by Xi Jinping to the United States. They could likely meet in Bali next week. A not-so-weakened Biden, would that give him more elbow room to try and cut a deal with Xi Jinping? Or, again, is there a bipartisan nature to the relationship between Beijing and Washington now? What Trump started, Biden's pretty much continuing in that same vein.
Yes,
Oh, I think, well, that's another good question. I believe that the U.S.-China relationship is so complex right now that we're not going to see any big master deal cut in any way between between Biden and Xi. And in some ways, China is being very expansionist and aggressive in both its economic and military policies, which exacerbates matters. As far as India is concerned, if I may add, I understand the India-Russia relationship for all the very good reasons that your other guests just stated, but it's very important also to keep in mind that in terms of China, Russia is now the little brother in that relationship, Russia-China.
Yep.
China is the more powerful party in most respects and certainly is economically much more powerful. So when India calculates and calibrates where it's going to come out regarding Ukraine and other matters regarding Russia, you can't count on Russia, because if India and China are bumping heads, hopefully not militarily, but certainly in terms of foreign policy, Russia is inevitably going to be siding with China. It's not a reliable partner for India at all in any way. China can really veto lots of things that India might want Russia to do. That's a very important factor to
I got to
keep in
wrap
mind
up. Thank
going
you very
forward.
much, Stephen Golub and Meera Shankar, for joining us. Yes, midterm elections usually have far greater domestic ramifications than foreign policy ones. But because it's the United States and because so much is at stake, this has been an interesting election. Thanks very much for tuning in. In a moment, Maria Shakil joining you with News18.